what happened last night out at University of California, Berkeley? You got to keep in mind, folks, UC Berkeley is, I mean, it's one of the most liberal, if not the most liberal college in the country. All right, this is what Mecca is to Muslims. University of California, Berkeley is to liberals. And I've told you for years that liberals tend to accuse conservatives of what they, the liberals themselves, are actually the most guilty of. It's the liberals that are about intolerance and mean-spiritedness and censorship and all that kind of stuff. Well, anyway, they were borderline rioting last night at University of California, Berkeley, burning things and destroying things and whatever, and shutting down this event by Milo Yiannopoulos. Right, here's the deal. If you don't know, Milo Yiannopoulos, this is somebody who, he's an openly gay guy who's fairly flamboyant in the way that he presents himself, so he wears his homosexuality out on his sleeve. However, he tends to be fairly conservative on a lot of issues. And he's strongly pro-Trump, and he very strongly criticizes and goes after political correctness, liberals, what he said, liberal whiny babies on the left, and that kind of thing. Okay, so he goes after that in a big way. He's British. He's an editor at Breitbart News. Okay, now, just so you folks know, I'm not a fan of Milo Yiannopoulos. I'm not. He's not a Christian, and quite frankly, he's pretty vulgar and crude. And so, my guess is you folks have never even heard me talking about Milo Yiannopoulos on this show ever before now, even though he's been gaining more and more popularity, but I don't know the time for him, not interested in him, because it's just too crude and vulgar. He'll use the F word sometimes in his speeches and such. But what he does in a very aggressive way is he, in essence, flips the middle finger at the liberal establishment in this country and the liberal media, and especially millennials and college students who are so left-wing and claim to be about tolerance. He basically rubs it in their face. He's the guy who says stuff like, oh yeah, you guys are sitting there whining, crying about, oh, we can't be mean to the Muslims, we can't be mean to the Muslims. Meanwhile, you have Muslim countries that are oppressing gay people, killing gay people, oppressing women. They're so anti-woman, anti-gay. And here you guys are on the left embracing Muslims around the world. What a bunch of blanking hypocrites you are. I mean, so that's the coarse, crude, direct kind of way that he talks. So here's what you have. You basically have some conservatives, some secular conservatives. He's not very popular among Christians, but secular conservatives like Milo Yiannopoulos, because they're like, this guy is a rude, crude dude who calls it the way that it is. He's got a little bit of that Donald Trump edge to him, if you will, and that's why he tends to relate to somebody like Donald Trump well. Well, anyway, Milo Yiannopoulos is accused by liberals and by those in the media of being a racist and a fascist and a white supremacist and stuff like this. And that's what the liberals at Berkeley are saying. That's the reason they're protesting, because we can't have somebody here who's a Nazi, who loves the swastika and considers white people superior and everything else. So these are the arguments that are being leveled against him. Well, I was curious. I don't read Milo Yiannopoulos. I don't pay attention to him. He's not a Christian. He's too crude for my taste, even though I agree with a lot of the things that he says. Not all of them, but a lot of things that he says are true things. But that's too, he's too coarse for me. Well, but anyway, and as I've said many times, folks, yes, I'm a conservative politically, but I'm a Christian first. And so as a Christian, I'm like, no, you guys can have Milo. But so I was curious, and I'm like, well, okay, let me see. Because if this guy is really saying white people are superior and black people are not, if he's really saying racist things, if he's really saying, fascist things, if he's really saying Nazi kind of things, then, we got to acknowledge this, all right? And I'm looking, so I'm going to liberal web. I wasn't going to any conservative websites, only liberal websites that hate Milo Yiannopoulos, to look at the absolute worst of the quotes that they could come up from him. And oh, there was stuff about, blanking this and F that and whatever. And so it was, crude language, okay. But I got to tell you, I wasn't seeing the racist stuff. I saw nothing. There was not one quote I could read anywhere where he said directly or indirectly that somehow whites were superior, or that he didn't like black people or minorities or anything like that at all. So this is where the left completely lose their credibility. Because let's face it, they call people like me or anybody who's just a conservative the same words, don't they? Fascist, racist, xenophobe, all that, Nazi. Donald Trump is being accused of being a Nazi and a white supremacist and a racist and all this kind of ugly stuff. You could disagree with some of Donald Trump's policies, and you could certainly disagree with some of his brash rhetoric. But see, liberals aren't content with that. They paint a big swastika over him. And they say that he's ushering in Nazi Germany, as the actress Ashley Judd said at the Women's Liberal March a couple weeks ago in Washington. When you exaggerate to that level, folks, you lose all credibility. And that's what they've done. And so they're doing the same thing about Milo Yiannopoulos. But that's not, I haven't read anything that suggests that that's who he is. What I've read is that this guy is a conservative who has a big following among anti-establishment millennials because of his blunt and brash talk. He's too crude for my taste, but he's basically giving a middle finger to the politically correct crowd. And he rips the hypocrisy of liberals and feminists regarding Islam and a whole bunch of other things, sanctuary cities and all that kind of stuff. And so the left can't stand it. And he's openly gay. And you know how gay people will call each other words that nobody else could get away with calling them, like queer or the F word, right? F-A-G-G-O-T or whatever. Just like some black people will call other black people the N-word. Well, Milo Yiannopoulos does this. He refers to himself as an F-A-G-G-O-T. But he also says he's a dangerous one because the left considers him dangerous because he's so bold to speak the truth. So that's why he's not a perfect fit at all for the Republican Party, because there's a lot of things he disagrees with in the Republican Party. But he's gone on a tour around the country, and he calls his tour the Dangerous F-A-G-G-O-T tour, because he says the liberals consider me a dangerous F word. All right, that's what he calls himself. And so the left can't stand it. Problem is, he's invited to speak at colleges or events, and when he does, liberals come out there and they protest and they try to shut it down. Well, last night he was scheduled to speak at UC Berkeley because the Republican millennials or the Republican or conservative college students invited him there to speak. And there's a minority of college students who want to hear what he has to say. But no, the liberals there would have none of it. As San Francisco Gate reports, quote, a protest at UC Berkeley turned fiery and violent Wednesday night, shutting down a scheduled speech by right-wing provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos. The Breitbart news editor was set to deliver a speech, but protesters began throwing fireworks, windows were smashed, fires set. An hour before his speech, for his own safety, he was ushered out by police. The Berkeley Police Department said people threw bricks, smoking objects, and fireworks at police officers, Molotov cocktails. University police locked down all buildings and ordered shelter in place, fired rubber pellets into the crowd who defied to leave the area. Police had to call in support from other law enforcement agencies. Police were out there in riot gear. A smoky scene. I mean, this was in essence a riot. They were burning down and destroying the place. As Fox News' Todd Starnes reports, quote, the birthplace of free speech movement has become its graveyard. Hundreds of liberals rioted at the University of California, Berkeley Wednesday night, burning stores, throwing Molotov cocktails, clashing with police. The rampaging mob forced the university to shut down an event featuring gay conservative firebrand and Breitbart editor Milo Yiannopoulos. Ironically, Milo had planned to deliver remarks defending freedom of speech. He wrote on Facebook afterward, quote, The one thing we do know for sure, the left is absolutely terrified of free speech and will literally do anything to shut it down, end quote. The British conservative journalist called the violence, quote, a horrible spectacle and very humiliating for American higher education, end quote.